First off, everyone needs to listen to your podcast. I think you guys are probably my most favorite industry podcast out there because you guys really teach actors how to actually be entrepreneurs, how to actually market themselves. So I also do feel like every actor should think of themselves as a business person.
Okay. Oh, and I see.
Okay, so we have started. Yeah, we already did our small talk off camera, so I mean, should we pretend to have more small talk? I don't know.
We'll pretend for you all that we're having small talk. No, but I will say about this episode. I love hate episodes like this because it's a big mirror.
Yeah, and it's like, this is always the issue with just it's funny, right? I was listening, Dan Coe. I'm telling you, man, that guy is like, I think he's like the next Gary V. I think he's like 2025 Gary V. And I don't know. I'm crying. I want to suck your dick, Dan. No, but the guy's 28. I mean, it's fucking wild. He's 28 years old, and he built this app called Cortex, and I'm going somewhere with this, which I've been using, which is like it's cool because what I appreciate about it is it's a little hard to get settled, but like imagine all of your productivity, all of your learning, all of your notes, all of your chat GPT, AI, everything is just in one software. And, what's really cool about that, is that, all of these things can talk to each other, right? Without having to use like 40 different things. It's very, very interesting. And, I've been using it and, I want to see in a couple months what the deal with that is. But anyway, what I think is hard about talking about something like budgeting, it's kind of what he talks about in the sense of like, positioning yourself as, all businesses are transformational, right? So all businesses offer some sort of transformation. And I would argue I think that's the same for us too, especially in the old school Hollywood system. Even it's like, actors, whatever, provided something aspirational to be. A lot of these people are role models for people growing up. I want to be like, whether it's Bill Murray or Meryl Streep or Sylvester Stallone, so all transactional, anything you pay to see, even if it's a play, whatever, there's some sort of transformation behind all of it. And I say this because if all business is transformational, and if everybody has to build a business, well, you have to be offering some sort of transformation for the person, which kind of going back to a couple, now it's like 8 episodes back, like, fake it till you make it. An example of us talking about budgeting right now, what's hard about it is that like, this is not a transformation I have fully embodied. And so to sit here and say, here's how you do it, or here's an ideal version how you do it, that's where imposter syndrome creeps in. But it's necessary, right? It's necessary to, make a hypothesis, like you say, and live and live it, but then share the knowledge along the way. That's just what's necessary nowadays. So that's why this is
well said. Well said. But let me say this, and also about Dan Coe. I would argue, you just said it, he's 28 years old, and he speaks, and I like Dan Coe a lot, actually. He speaks with a ton of confidence, but also, just like all of us, we're all going to be constantly evolving.
Yeah.
He does not have all the answers to everything. His app will probably be wildly different 12 months from now. And that to me is also what I don't want to refer to us as thought leaders, publicly. No. But you know, the reason what we do with this podcast is act as thought leaders of sorts in relation to the topic at hand. And how I think it's a good actually relation to this episode, because you're right. Like, let me be clear, because just to be clear, we're talking about budgeting today. That's what we're talking about. If you haven't got it from the
Yep.
title episode, but I want to say that, you know, I, as you have, been budgeting for decades. Meaning, whether it's small but micro budgeting, macro budgeting, whatever it is, I've been creating budgets forever. Personal budgets, show budgets, you know, production budgets, business budgets, annual budget, quarterly budgets, whatever. I've been budgeting for a long fucking time. But the truth is, and I think that you're getting that this too, and this is actually the point of the episode. This was the real point of the episode. I would argue, for I think many times us, but many of the artists that we, especially, because obviously that's who we're looking at primarily. For many, it's a concept. The word we use, and I think we'll come back to it, it's symbolic rather than an active tool. And you have this definition here, and I'd like to read it just because I think it is valuable.
Google.
Pulled from Google, just to be clear, even if it's obvious. What is a budget? A budget is a plan that outlines how you will spend and save your money over a specific period, such as a month or year. It's a summary of your expected income and expenses, helping you track your financial activities and reach your goals. A very simple idea in many ways. I think everyone understands that, and everyone can go, yeah, sure, that's what the budget does. I think what I'm fascinated by as we talk about this today is in many ways sort of trying to get to why it is such an inactive tool for so many of us, when it is something that actually, in all actuality, we need to be like Angelo at our spreadsheets. Whenever I reference King Angelo, just know that A, he's the king, B, he's Mike's dad, C, he's an accountant, and you know, lives and dies by his spreadsheets, and so that's my reference point. I really do. I think we need to argue. I'd argue like a morning check-in. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic, and we'll talk about process.
No,
but
yeah,
you know what
I mean,
saying.
I think that, well, you know, and I want to get to this in a little bit, but true, like, you know, why is it a concept, and are there different considerations for us, you know? But related to that definition, I just want to say that there's really 4 parts to the definition. I see 4 elements. Number 1 is your income, right? So how much is your expected income going to be for a month, a year, whatever the period is that you're looking at here? Number 2 is expenses. So what are your expected expenses for that period? How much are you spending? Number 3 is, you know, what I found interesting, it's a summary of your expected incomes, how you will spend and save your money over a specific period. So, you know, I think that saving is an element of, you know, a budget, because because in the quote traditional sense, you're ideally spending less than you're taking in. So anything left over, whether it goes into a, you know, an investment account, an IRA, your savings account, it just stays in your checking account as a cushion. That's all considered savings. So what is left over, the dividend of what's left over, is part of savings, right? And the 4th thing here is goals. You know, a budget that you are, you know, that you craft, right? Or when you're being intentional around a budget, is based on goals, right? Like, you can look at your objective budget, which is just like, this is how much I'm going to spend, save, and make, with no goals attached. But when you start to be intentional about, oh, I want to cut here, I want to, you know, make more here, or I want to spend less in this area, you know, now you are bringing goals into the equation, you know, and that's what intentional budgeting sort of is the foundation of is what your goals are, right?
I want to say one thing about the savings, which we'll talk about more, but you know that for me personally, I mean, well, we've talked. This has been a part of our work. What I'm about to say. I do think in an ideal world that we would all have, artists would have 3 months of savings, 3 months of expenses saved up, not 1 month.
Sure.
And that is be given to help us, and then, by the way, not feel ashamed to pull from that when needed.
Yeah.
Given the way, but I'm saying that because I think you're bringing up a really good point that I actually would argue we have to have and use our budget to have a stronger hold on or process for considering savings.
Right.
But I do think that this is, this question, what did we think budgeting was versus what we realize it now to be? Meaning, 10 years ago, obviously you were surely aware of, again, what a budget was, but what was our relationship to budgeting, and what is it now? I'm laughing as though we're like master budgeters now, but what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I guess the transformation for me is in 2 parts. Number one is I never kept a budget, right? But I would try to be square, right? Like I would try to, like I wouldn't carry around a lot of credit card debt. I would look at my account, just be like, oh, I need to pay this down, but may have enough money to cover this. So like, I wasn't I wasn't intentional around budgeting. It was just more of a survival thing. I think what has changed is that the budget now reflects my aspirations to an extent and what my goals are. And I go back and forth, right? And this will kind of go into the next part.
Out of curiosity, who taught you about budgeting?
Nobody. Well, surprisingly, nobody taught me about.
Wait, can I say something that relates to this real quick? Michael's cousin. This is interesting. Michael's cousin was staying with us the past couple of days, and Michael's cousin is just finished 4 years of medical school, and he's about to start a residency for another 4 years at a hospital or something in San Francisco. And I was like, and tell me about the residency. Like, what's the point of a residency? And he's like, well, you think of those first 4 years of medical school as getting your skills. What are the foundational skills you have to have as practitioner of medicine, a doctor. He's going to be specifically an anesthesiologist. So you get the basics. And then the next 4 years of your training are real world application where you then go deeper. And I was thinking about this in relation to artists because I'm like, and this relates to this because you go to your 4 years of, you get your training and that's amazing. You get the foundational skill. And then what if artists had some sort of residency opportunity where it was like, okay, great. So keep those skills alive. You're still going to be doing it, but are you budgeting? LOL, just whatever insert the pieces here before you go, okay. And I was just thinking about it just from an industry standpoint, because I would argue something like that's even more needed for artists than even doctors. That would be a very ignorant, stupid thing to say, but you know what I'm saying.
No, but well, it's just like, how do you have? Because then again, like going to a residency isn't like me becoming a resident company member of a theater company isn't reflective of reality. Either it doesn't really prepare you for anything,
right?
But so I just want to make that distinction. I know that's not what you're saying, but if there was like some sort of mentorship to now help people through their experience in the real world.
Or better yet, what if, because does actor training need to be 4 years? I don't know. What if it was a 2-year boots on the ground foundational effort And then the final 2, this is not the point of this episode, but then the final 2 years were, 3 months out, 3 months in, 3 months out, 3 months in, and you basically.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea.
And then it was like and I'm saying it because it's just, it's just when you say like no one taught you budgeting. It's funny, no one certainly taught me. I would have, to be honest with you, no shade to Ange, but I would have thought Big Ange would have been like, hey, sit down, my boy.
Yeah.
Sit down, my paisan.
No, he didn't. And I think that what's changed for me now and going back and forth between these two things, right? Which is like I feel like for a long time, when we started working together, I kind of took these things and ran a little bit too much. And I say this because not things that you taught me, because you're actually, I would argue, pretty diligent with your finances. But me going like, oh, it's fucked. It's kind of always gonna be fucked, and for me to be successful, it's gonna have to get more fucked to an extent. Black way of putting it, when it comes to debt, whatever. Right. And because that's what building a business is. It's unpredictable. It's da 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 da. So I went very far, I feel like, in the other direction of sort of being actually kind of lax about, because I'm like, oh, it's always going to be shitty. It's always going to be rough. That's the life. But I need to keep investing, or when really in reality, like, it was just more of an excuse to spend on other things. But I say this because now I'm sort of in between the two camps of trying to figure out, like, okay, regardless of what my goals are and what I want to do and what I want my life to be, I can't be destitute, because that's impossible, right? Like, so it's not good to keep piling on. So expenses need to be just met, and not like, well, that's the life, but also an understanding that, like, I see I'm thinking of one person in particular. I will not say his name. And I don't feel like bleeping it out, but somebody who, a lot of actors who are actually and people I've worked with who are super diligent about not carrying any debt, super diligent about having this, meeting money is very, very, they're very on top of their money. And as a result, but these are people I don't see really doing much. I don't see them making their own work. I don't see them like pushing the boundaries of their craft or really being leaders in their career. I don't see it. And so, so what's the middle ground between not being like me, which is like, fuck this business, baby, blah, 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 blah,
exactly,
plastic, versus being like so on top of, sticking so much to the traditional advice of how it's supposed to be, that you're actually not.
Listen, I think this is a great point because A, balance. B, I'm right there with you, that, and you've heard me say, I'm a big believer in risks. I probably also similarly take too many risks, but then you have to have a hawk eye on and a system to make sure that you don't teeter over the edge. And so there's sort of like these there are it's like touching both extremes, right? It's like touching the outer band of pushing the envelope and taking the risks, and also, but then having a net, a time and place and process to check in. Now, here's what's emotionally challenging about that. What's emotionally challenging about that is you're sort of creating this tug of war situation where you're trying to bolster yourself up to have the confidence to take the risks while also being the policeman or woman or person of your circumstance in order to create guardrails. And that is a bit of a mind fuck, isn't it?
Well, I'll just be explicit. It's like, oh, I'm sort of pulling back to work on myself a little bit in some ways. And it's like, so I've started taking gig work again, right? To supplement my income. Now, look, that's not aligned with my goals. That's not aligned with what I would like to do for the future, right? That is time technically and energy taking away from the things I would like to make, the whatever I would like to do, within my artistic journey. And, but, so it's like there's that tug of war there around like, oh, like, I want to make this short and, I may have to finance some of it myself, but that's going to cost me $5,000 on a credit card or whatever the fuck. And there's that reality of like, I need to make this thing versus like, you're going to put yourself in the fucking shit. And so that's the kind of tug of war we're talking about here, because oftentimes, look, building up supplemental, income streams that you control takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy. And it's not something that I've had to try and teach myself how to do it. It's not something that I particularly would like to do in a vacuum. I'm doing it to support my artistic journey. So it's like, I say all this because you get what I'm saying is that tug of war between like taking the risk, investing in yourself versus like being diligent about like, oh, all of a sudden I'm in a, really bad bind here, and balancing that survival need with sort of the aspirational need here.
100%. Well, and just to be clear, the other reason why we're talking about this and talking about many of the things we do is because, and Mike, you and I go back and forth on this a bit, I think, but I do think that artists are in incredibly unique situations, even if they are person made. I'm just so good. I'm just so press out. And what I mean by that is that even if the circumstance is similar to the local plumber, I do think we have to give consideration to the emotionality and sensitive spirit and ignorance of the artist. And I say it actually with love, because there are so many reasons why traditional budgeting ideals do not apply beyond the circumstantial. And so to say a few of them, obviously monthly income is very assumedly not going to be the same.
Yep.
There are months when I make $12,000 and months when I make $680.
Yep.
And so you and in relation to budgeting, what's going to, you're trying to set consistent numbers. So we're going to talk about how to use a budget down the road, because, for me, I'm a big believer in like, don't set that thing and forget it. It can't be set it and forget.
And why it's not predictable for artists, just to be clear, is because, well, I want to say this, which is like, it depends, right, on how you're going about it, right? Which is like, if you're hoping to be employed on something like the regular model of like, I'm going to book a show, then yes, you have no idea. You have that's you being hired for a job truly is, we were just talking about a tape I did where it's like, a lot of things are in your control, but also like, oh, you don't know what, you could be right for it, but like, you don't know what the circumstances of the production, you don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, so assumedly you're going to have to either, and getting a 9 to 5 is probably, if you want to stick to that model, I would argue of like, I want other people to employ me, then a 9 to 5 is not an option.
Right.
If you actually let go of being employed for your art and go like, well, I'm going to create my own art and create my own ecosystem, make it have a direct transactional nature with an audience, whether that's through YouTube advertising or like, producing or whatever, then actually you probably could have a 9 to 5 job technically, because you're not as dependent. Your availability is not dependent. You get what I mean by that?
I do.
There's a slight difference there. So you could do that. But if you're trying to have sort of like a hybrid of like, I want to make my own work, but I also want to be employed by other people for my art, then you're truly sort of like, there's too many variables for you to
because I was thinking about this. You watch Shark Tank and someone comes on and they say, "Oh, I've got a putty that can, kill mice in 3 foot, whatever." Okay, amazing. And I do it in my garage at night, and I've got a full-time job at the local bagel shop, whatever. The reason why that sort of feels easier is because it's actually kind of specific in terms of like, I'm developing my product, and yes, I'm trying to sell it, but here's the difference with us. With us, and I'm just going to use actor, filmmaker world for a second. So for you other artists, I'm sure the same always applies, which is we've got to go to the festivals, we've got to do the relationships, we've got to make the work, we've got to market it. It's something that is more personal and expansive and emotional and time consuming and boundaryless. Because I think about this, about why, and because you bring up a good point, Mike, a lot. One of the things that we talk about, and it all relates to this conversation about budgeting. I'm going to spin out for a second and to bring it full circle here. I just want to lose the two thoughts. The thing that you say a lot is we talk about simply it being, and we've heard many people say, for you listening who come and work with us, and that we agree with you on, is that it's too much. There's too many things going on, and it's difficult to know where to put your time and energy. And one example, if I may, and how this relates to budgeting is, we think about a lot of times, we try to compartmentalize some of our work into, finances, self-producing, marketing, relationship building, just for organization understanding's sake. And one of the things that we've often talked about is also like, well, just like any business would, you set budgets for those things. Oh, I have a self-producing budget. I've got a, let's just say, I'm going to take people to coffee budget, whatever. That's the ideal. But here's what's hard about it. It gets back to what we're saying. It's just a lot. It is a lot to try to hold on to when, then to get back to your point, you're trying to juggle certainly a full-time job, but also maybe just the various other income streams. When you're just constantly loaded with endless amounts of things to do, it can make even something as important as and necessarily as specific as budgeting quite difficult. Does this make sense what I'm saying? And I'm still here.
Yeah, I think it does, because look, like I think personally, what I want to lift about what you're saying about the too much thing is here's where I agree with you. It's because, and actually I think this is the center of why budgeting is probably, it's going to address everything, is because we would do our art for free. So, I think a lot of entrepreneurs they do a lot of things for their business. They do travel, they have to do social media, they have to do all these fucking things, right? But they're building that thing for one very specific reason, which is to make money and to be financially free. I think many of them are passionate about their projects, about their products, but most of the time they are doing that for a financial goal when somebody goes into business for themselves. So they work their 9 to 5 or they do whatever, and then they work to build something that will make them money. I think the key difference with us artists is that we would do our art for free because we love it. Right. And so why that is truly, I think, at the center of why budgeting is hard for artists is because, okay, so you're going to do this thing no matter what, which is act, make movies, whatever. That's free. You'll do that. I mean, you want to make money from it. You're obviously aiming to make money, but you're going to do that for free. So there's that. So now you have this other thing. And now going back to like, a regular entrepreneur, you probably have to work a survival job and build that financially free business or model for yourself to pay your bills while you're really trying to pursue something that you would do for free no matter what. And I say that makes budgeting tricky for artists is because there's that push and pull between, like, I can't go away for 2 years. I'm trying my damnedest to actually kind of pull myself away from artistic projects right now, but I can't help it. This is what I want to do with my life. And so I get kind of pulled in to little things here and there. In fact, I just lost a fucking gig job that, was paying me a lot of money because I booked something that does pay, but it would take Saturday, not nearly as much. It would take my Saturdays away. And they were not cool with that. And I'm like, well, then that's not going to work. Like, if I can't take the Saturdays off to go do this fucking thing I booked, then it's not going to work anyway. Like, that's bad. But so the thing that always comes in and fucks with our budget is the art.
I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I don't mind bleeping out the name, but I think you'll know who I'm talking about. We know someone, I've told you about this person. They were just starring on a hit TV show, making a lot of money. And when I was talking to them a few months ago, they said, look, like, and they've worked from the beginning. I mean, they absolutely are worth millions of dollars. They've been on successful TV shows for the past basically 20 years. And I'm saying this though because they said, but I've never really done the work I wanted to do. I never got into the indie scene. To your point, but they've now got a family, 3 kids, a wife, they've got and they've got the beautiful house to maintain. And their question is,
can't find his net worth. Anyway, sorry.
I mean, I'm sure it's not 50 million, but I'm sure it's 3.5 million, 4 million bucks.
Like, sure, too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But he did say, and you could tell like he was willing to take that risk for a little bit, but he's like, but then at some point I'm going to have to get back on the train. And so the question for him, as a known commodity in his, let's just say, commercial procedural world, is how does he now expand his artistic purpose or desires, per your point about doing shit for free, while also then playing within the guardrails of needing to just live a life. And I think it is a good point that there are plenty of serial entrepreneurs in the world, but their goal in their entrepreneurship, while yes, it might even be mission driven and passion driven, is to see the thing make money.
To make money, yeah.
And to your point, artists as entrepreneurs are more than likely, more often than not, stuck in the conundrum of how do I put the value of the dollar on my art because I have to, because I want that to be my focus, because I don't want to be arguing with this company that's not letting me take off for the Saturday thing, while also preserving and making sure that it's art that aligns with who you are. Because to speak to this person, it's not that it was bad work, but it wasn't the work they wanted to be doing.
No, it's basic shit. And I say this, and so, because an entrepreneur has a regular old somebody starting a side business or trying to be financially free, whether it's they're selling putty or they're trying to be a YouTube influencer or whatever, is going to have a lot of the issues like, they can't predict exactly how much money. They don't know how much, it's not somebody paying them, so they don't know how much money they're actually going to make. It's going to be based off of sales, right? And they could set a goal and work their damnedest toward it. At the end of the day, they really don't know how much money they're going to make. Right. And so, and then they're going to be stuck in the conundrum where it's like, shit, I'm $6,000 short of the sales goals I wanted this month. I have to make up the $6,000. Do I go take a job over here? But then that's going to take me away from the thing I'm actually building. So that's something that's common with entrepreneurs, right? Like all entrepreneurs. The other thing here that is this idea of like, certain business opportunity, so all of a sudden, if I have some sort of opportunity, like, expenses can't be predicted either entirely. You can set budgets and you could say, this is my marketing budget, this is my da-da-da budget, this is my DTD budget for months. But at the end of the day, business is unpredictable because you have to adapt with circumstances, right? So if an opportunity arises that's sort of irresistible, that really is a jump on the bandwagon for your business, whether it's let's say, somebody, I could partner with an influencer for my project, and one time only he's offering 50% off, whatever his rate is to like market my product on his page. And it's this month only. I've been trying to get this guy for months. I have to jump on that opportunity because I'm not going to get that opportunity. Well, now all of a sudden my marketing budget has blown up.
Right.
And so I can't I have to go with the flow with opportunities, with expenses. I can try but that's very common for all entrepreneurs, including us, right? The other thing that's common, I would argue, is this idea of, it's debt, right? And so like most of the time, businesses, even though every person who starts a business is intending to make money, most businesses operate at some sort of loss. Now, I think that with social media, with the digital revolution, with sort of this idea is what Dan Coe would say is like the one person business, like it is you don't have to invest as much as you used to because you don't have to build up a corporate infrastructure with all this bullshit anymore. You can just, make YouTube videos for like 20 YouTube videos a day or whatever, find out what sticks, and then build upon that, right? Like, so you don't need as much investment anymore. But a lot of the times businesses operate at losses. They are not making money, which is
Just to be clear,
purpose of a budget.
Hey, you guys, Mike here. I know, jump scare. That was a segment from our latest episode of Creative Risk. And this episode, the full episode, exclusively lives on our Patreon. So if you enjoyed what you've heard so far and you want to dive deeper, consider joining the Patreon community of Creative Risk. We offer 3 membership tiers starting at just $5. As a member, you'll get access to ad-free episodes, weekly motivational content, bonus full-length episodes, and much more, including a book club. Come on. But it's more than just content. Really, you'll be a part of a community that's dedicated to accountability and support, helping you stay motivated and inspired. So just head over to our Patreon, Creative Risk Podcast, patreon.com/Creative Risk Podcast. It's in the episode description as well. And sign up today, you guys. Hope to see you in our community.